In the vast darkness of space, a small transport ship approached the gleaming planet of Zythar, ruled by the powerful and merciless Queen Ziliara. Elias, a human captured from Earth, stood inside the ship's cramped holding area, his heart pounding as the vessel shook slightly upon entering the planet's atmosphere. The cold metal walls offered no comfort, and the distant stars he could see through the small porthole seemed indifferent to his fate. As the ship descended through the layers of swirling clouds, the landscape of Zythar came into view. Mountains that pierced the sky, forests that glowed with an ethereal light, and sprawling cities that buzzed with alien technology. Elias had heard stories of Queen Ziliara's court, a place of wonder and terror, where beings from across the galaxy gathered to serve or defy her, often meeting gruesome ends. The ship landed with a soft thud on the landing pad of the royal palace, a towering structure of gleaming energy and twisted metal that stretched towards the heavens. Guards clad in shimmering armor surrounded the ship as soon as the ramp descended. They swiftly entered, their eyes hidden behind visors, their movements precise and coordinated. Elias was grabbed by strong hands and pulled from the ship. His feet barely touched the ground as he was escorted through a series of winding corridors and expansive halls. The interior of the palace was as intimidating as its ruler, with walls that pulsed with light and floors made of a substance that seemed to move underfoot. The air was filled with a chorus of alien languages and the sharp scent of ozone. He was finally brought into a grand chamber, the heart of the palace, where Queen Ziliara awaited him. The queen sat on a throne that seemed to be crafted from living crystal, her presence commanding and inescapable. She was larger than any human, her skin a shimmering silver, and her eyes glowed with a fierce intelligence. "You are the latest in a line of challenges," she declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. It was cold, devoid of any emotion but a piercing interest. "Fail to entertain me, and like the others, you will meet your end." Elias stood before her, trying to steady his breathing. He had been many things on Earth, a scholar, a fighter, a survivor, but nothing had prepared him for this. He knew his history, the stories of other humans who had stood where he now stood, none of whom had survived the Queen's tests. Yet, as he met her gaze, something stirred within him, not just a desire to survive, but a determination to defy the fate that had claimed so many others. In that moment, he made his choice. He would not cower. He would meet whatever challenges lay ahead with the full force of his humanity, for himself and for those who had no voice. The queen leaned forward, a slight smile playing on her lips as if she sensed his resolve. "Let us begin," she said, signaling to one of her advisors. The advisor stepped forward, holding a device that projected a holographic image into the center of the room. "Solve this," the queen commanded, watching him intently. "Show me that your human intellect is more than just primitive instincts." Elias looked at the swirling patterns of the hologram, complex and alien, yet somehow familiar in their mathematical precision. It was a puzzle, a test of logic and understanding, and the first of many he would have to face. The court watched silently, a multitude of alien faces observing his every move. With a deep breath, Elias stepped forward, his mind racing through possibilities, his spirit undaunted. This was his chance to prove not just his worth, but the worth of humanity itself. The game was on, and he was ready to play. The hologram before Elias pulsed with life, its layers of complexity shifting and rotating in a silent dance of light and shadow. Queen Ziliara watched him with an intensity that seemed to strip away the distance between them, her gaze piercing as if she could see into the depths of his mind. Around the room, the court of Zythar, a collection of the galaxy's most exotic beings, watched in a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Elias approached the holographic labyrinth, his eyes tracing the ever-changing paths and dead ends. The device responded to his proximity, its patterns accelerating, as though it were challenging him to keep up. He extended a hand, and the hologram reacted, parting at his touch and reshaping as he manipulated the pathways. The challenge was clear: navigate the maze, find the solution, survived the Queen's test. His mind raced, drawing on every scrap of his education and experience back on Earth. He recalled his training in algorithms and puzzle solving, his nights spent playing chess, and his studies of alien technologies during his brief tenure at the Interstellar Relations Bureau. Each memory, each piece of knowledge, was a tool he wielded against the daunting complexity of the alien puzzle. As minutes turned into hours, Elias felt the weight of the spectators' eyes on him, their silent judgments pressing down like a physical force. He could hear the soft whispers and the occasional chuckle from those who doubted a human could entertain their queen. But Elias's focus never wavered. His every movement was deliberate, calculated to bring him closer to his goal. The Queen's advisor, a tall figure shrouded in a flowing robe, periodically adjusted the settings on the device, each time increasing the complexity of the hologram. It seemed as though the advisor was testing not just Elias's intellect, but his endurance and willpower. Despite the mounting pressure, Elias found a rhythm, his initial hesitation replaced by a growing confidence. He began to anticipate the hologram's changes, adapting his strategies with fluid precision. The maze became more than just a puzzle. It was a battleground, and he was its master. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Elias reached the heart of the labyrinth. With a few final swipes of his hand, he aligned the last of the holographic pathways, and the entire structure pulsed brightly before dissipating into a shower of light particles. The room fell silent, the onlookers stunned. Queen Zythar rose from her throne, her expression unreadable. She stepped down from her dais, her movements graceful, yet filled with a power that reminded everyone of her dominance. She approached Elias, stopping just a breath away from him. Court held its collective breath, unsure of how their queen would react to this human who had dared to succeed where so many others had failed. Very interesting indeed. Zythar finally spoke, her voice low but clear. You have not just solved the puzzle, Elias. You have turned it into an art form. Her eyes, those deep pools of luminescent wisdom, seemed to flicker with a mix of respect and a new, burgeoning interest. Thank you, Your Majesty, Elias responded, maintaining his composure despite the fatigue that clawed at his limbs. I am here to serve and entertain, as is the will of the court. The Queen smiled, a rare expression that hinted at more tests and trials to come. Indeed you shall, she said. Prepare him for the next challenge, she ordered her advisor without taking her eyes off Elias. Let us see how far this human can go. As he was led away to rest and prepare for whatever lay ahead, Elias knew he had not only survived the first test, but had also gained something invaluable, a measure of respect from Queen Zythar and her court. But more importantly, he had confirmed to himself that he was capable of facing the unknown challenges ahead. Each step was a step towards understanding this alien world, and perhaps a step towards changing it. In the days following his success with the holographic labyrinth, Elias's status within the palace shifted subtly. The eyes that once regarded him with contempt now watched with a mix of curiosity and cautious respect. Whispers followed him through the corridors. Some spoke of his intellect. Others speculated about the challenges Queen Zythar might devise next. It was during this time of wary acceptance that Elias met Mara, the Queen's advisor who had altered the difficulty of his first test. Mara approached Elias one evening as he wandered the palace's vast library, a place where texts and data from countless worlds were stored. The library was a sanctuary of sorts for Elias, its quiet halls filled with the promise of knowledge and the potential for new strategies. You have impressed many, Elias. Not least the Queen, Mara said, her voice a soft contrast to the echoing steps of passing guards. Her appearance was unassuming for someone in her position, her robe simpler than those of her peers, her demeanor more measured. Elias, cautious but intrigued, closed the book he was browsing, a detailed analysis of Zytharian legal codes, and faced her. I'm just trying to survive, he replied, his tone guarded yet honest. Mara smiled slightly, her eyes scanning the library as if to ensure their privacy. Survival is a noble goal, but you may find that you have a larger role to play here than you think. And what role would that be? Elias asked, his interest piqued despite his reservations. Mara stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Not everyone agrees with how the Queen runs her court or her planet. There are those among us who seek change, a new way of leading that doesn't involve the execution of those who fail to entertain. Elias studied Mara's expression, trying to discern her true intentions. "Why tell me this?" he asked. "Because, like it or not, you have become a symbol," Mara explained. "Your success, a human success, challenges long-held beliefs about inferiority and dominance. You have an opportunity here, Elias, not just to survive, but to influence." Elias felt the weight of her words, the magnitude of the opportunity, and the risk it carried. "And what do you expect from me?" he queried, his mind racing with the possibilities and dangers of a line with a faction within the Queen's court. Mara glanced around once more before responding. "For now, observe, learn. We will help you where we can, provide you with information, perhaps ways to enhance your standing further. In return, when the time comes, we hope you will support our cause." Considering her offer, Elias realized that his chances of survival might indeed hinge on such alliances. More than that, he saw a chance to make a difference, to maybe even alter the course of an entire world. "All right," he agreed. "I'll do what I can, but I proceed with caution." "Caution is wise." Mara nodded approvingly. "We'll communicate discreetly. I'll bring you information and tools. You use them to stay in the Queen's favor." Their meeting ended with the exchange of a data chip containing information about the upcoming challenges and key members of the court to watch. As Elias pocketed the chip, he felt the dangerous thrill of conspiracy. He was no longer just a contestant in the Queen's deadly games, but a player in a larger scheme that could shift the balance of power on Zythar. Returning to his quarters with the chip burning a hole in his pocket, Elias knew he had to be smarter, more cautious, and more daring than ever before. The game had changed, and so had his part in it. Each step forward was a step into the unknown, but now he walked it with allies, and the path, though perilous, seemed filled with new possibilities. The news of Elias's next challenge spread quickly through the palace, fueling rumors and speculation among the court. It was to be a grand spectacle, a battle in the arena that Queen Zythar reserved for the most entertaining of her displays. The arena, a massive structure visible from nearly any part of the palace, was a place of both awe and horror, where strength, cunning, and sometimes sheer luck decided the fate of those who entered. As the day of the battle approached, Elias trained with a small group of Queen Zythar's combat specialists. They were merciless in their instruction, pushing him to the limits of his physical and mental endurance. They taught him the basics of hand-to-hand combat and the use of various weapons that might be found in the arena. Each session left him bruised and exhausted, but with each passing day, he felt stronger, more agile, more prepared. Mara, true to her word, provided Elias with information that proved invaluable. She gave him insights into the creatures he would likely face, each a formidable opponent captured from different corners of the galaxy and brought here as a test for the Queen's entertainers. Mara also supplied Elias with data on the arena itself, including hidden traps and the locations of weapon caches. On the morning of the battle, the air was thick with anticipation. Spectators from across the planet, as well as dignitaries from distant worlds, filled the massive stands that surrounded the arena. The Queen sat in her elevated throne, her presence dominating the event. Elias entered the arena, his body tense, his senses heightened. The ground was sand mixed with some metallic compound that shifted underfoot, designed to keep the combatants off balance. Across the arena, gates lifted, and his opponents emerged. One was a hulking brute from the mining colonies of Drax, covered in rock-like scales. Another, a nimble four-armed fighter from the forest world of Issel. The crowd roared as the announcer presented each combatant, their cheers and jeers echoing off the walls of the arena. When it came to Elias, a hush fell over the crowd, a mix of curiosity and skepticism about the human who had dared to survive the Queen's tests. The battle began without warning, a horn sounding the charge. Elias's training kicked in. He sprinted towards the nearest weapon cache, remembering Mara's instructions. He grabbed a short, bladed weapon, its balance perfect for his human strength and agility. The Draxian charge, its heavy steps causing the ground to tremor. Elias dodged, using his smaller size and speed to his advantage, maneuvering around the arena's traps, which he now knew well. The Issel fighter proved to be a tougher opponent, its four arms allowing for a barrage of attacks that Elias struggled to parry. But he adapted, using his knowledge of the arena to lure the Issel into a trap, a concealed pit that the Queen enjoyed using to add spice to the battles. The Issel stumbled, and Elias seized the opportunity to disarm one of its arms, forcing it to yield. As the battle wore on, Elias used a combination of the skills he had learned and the strategic insights Mara had provided. He became a whirlwind of motion, anticipation, and strategy, turning each of his opponent's strengths into weaknesses. Finally, only Elias stood unchallenged in the arena. The crowd, initially silent, now erupted in cheers and shouts. Even the Queen stood, clapping slowly, her face betraying a hint of surprise and amusement. As the guards escorted him back to his quarters, Elias's body ached from the exertion, and adrenaline began to ebb, leaving a trail of fatigue in its wake. But more than physical tiredness, he felt a surge of confidence. He had faced the worst the Queen could throw at him and emerged victorious. More importantly, he had won over the crowd, their cheers granting him a measure of safety in the Queen's court. Elias knew, however, that each victory was another step deeper into the deadly politics of Ziliara's realm. Tonight, he was a hero, an entertainer who had surpassed expectations. But tomorrow, the Queen might demand even more spectacular displays of courage or cunning. The game was far from over, and survival was still his paramount goal. After his triumph in the arena, Elias's reputation grew not only among the spectators of the court, but also among those who lurked in the shadows of Queen Ziliara's rule. Whispers of his deeds traveled through the palace and into the darker corners of the planet, where the oppressed and downtrodden held little hope until tales of a human who could defy the Queen ignited a spark of rebellion. Mara, seeing the potential in Elias's growing influence, began to arrange secret meetings with key figures dissatisfied with the Queen's tyrannical regime. These were dangerous gatherings, held in the dead of night in forgotten parts of the palace or in the dense, glowing forests of Zythar, where surveillance devices struggled to penetrate. At one such meeting, a dimly lit room beneath the arena itself, Elias met with leaders of various factions, disgruntled military officers, influential merchants tired of the Queen's heavy taxes, and leaders of alien communities who sought greater representation. Each of them had heard of the human who could outthink and outfight any challenge. Elias, understanding the weight of his new role, spoke with a conviction he hadn't known he possessed. "We stand at a crossroads," Elias told them, his voice steady and clear despite the flickering light. "Each of us has suffered under the Queen's rule, and alone we might continue to suffer. But together, we have the power to change our fate." Mara supported Elias, providing tactical advice and sharing intelligence she gathered through her network. "The Queen trusts me, but she is not a fool," Mara warned. "We must be cautious, plan each move with precision. The palace is riddled with spies, and not everyone who nods in agreement here will stand with us when the time comes." Plans began to take shape. They would need a signal, a moment of distraction, perhaps during one of the Queen's elaborate events, to seize control of the palace's security systems and arm the oppressed. The network of rebels grew daily, fueled by Elias's victories and Mara's strategies. As the preparations for a large festival honoring the Queen's latest conquest began, the rebels knew this would be their opportunity. The event would draw in not only the usual array of courtiers, but also additional security forces and, crucially, the Queen's attention. Elias spent the days leading up to the festival training with the rebels, teaching them the combat skills he had learned and helping to smuggle small arms into hidden caches throughout the palace. Every move they made carried risk, but the growing unrest among the populace provided the perfect cover for their activities. On the night of the festival, the palace was ablaze with lights and filled with the sounds of celebration. Performers from across the galaxy showed their skills, and the queen, adorned in her most extravagant attire, presided over the spectacle with a smug confidence. Elias mingled among the guests, his every sense alert. Mara was at her post near the queen, her expression calm but her eyes searching. As the apex of the celebration approached, with a grand display of fireworks planned to light the sky, Elias met Mara's gaze across the crowded room and nodded subtly. That was the signal. Explosions rocked the night, not just in the sky, but also at strategic points around the palace. Confusion ensued. Guards scrambled to their posts, only to find themselves overrun by rebels who poured out from hidden passages and seized control. The queen, shocked and furious, was quickly surrounded. Her elite guards fought valiantly, but were outnumbered by the rebels and the palace guards who had turned against her. As the rebellion took control, Elias made his way to the throne room, where Mara held the queen at bay. "It's over, your majesty," Elias said, not without compassion. "Your rule by fear ends tonight." Queen Zythar looked around at the faces of her former subjects, now resolute and defiant. She knew her reign was at an end. "What now, human?" she asked, her voice a mix of defiance and resignation. "Now," Elias replied. "We build a world where no one fears the night, and where justice doesn't come from the edge of a sword." The rebellion was swift, its success a testament to the planning and unity of a diverse group of beings, all brought together by a human who had once been nothing more than a slave. As the dawn broke over Zythar, it illuminated not just the debris of a night of upheaval, but the first day of a new era. The dawn of the new era on Zythar revealed a world in quiet shock. The overthrow of Queen Zythar had been rapid and decisive, a testament to the unity and determination of the rebels led by Elias and strategically guided by Mara. As the sun rose, casting its light on the regal palace, now marked by the previous night's struggle, the inhabitants of Zythar and its colonies faced the reality of their newfound freedom. Elias stood beside Mara in the throne room, now repurposed as a meeting hall for the leaders of the rebellion and representatives of the populace. The atmosphere was charged with a blend of exhilaration and the heavy burden of responsibility. Eyes full of hope and expectation turned towards Elias, who had become more than just a symbol of resistance. He was now a leader in the shaping of their future. Mara addressed the gathered crowd, her voice resonant in the stillness. "We stand at the threshold of what we fought so hard to achieve, a free Zythar. It is our duty to ensure that the tyranny we endured never takes root again." Elias stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. "Our new government must be founded on principles of fairness, transparency, and inclusivity. We will establish a council where representatives from all sectors of Zythar can voice their concerns and contribute to our governance." The plan was met with nods and murmurs of approval. A provisional government was quickly formed, comprising leaders from the rebellion and former adversaries of the queen who had proven their commitment to change. Elias knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges as they balanced old traditions with new freedoms. In the following weeks, Elias worked tirelessly, mediating disputes and helping to draft a new constitution. The former queen, under secure and humane confinement, was given a fair trial that was broadcast throughout the planet. Her reign was examined, and her crimes were laid bare, not for revenge, but as a necessary step towards healing and moving forward. She was sentenced to life imprisonment, a sentence that served both as a closure for her tyrannical rule and a stark reminder of the consequences of absolute power. As stability began to return to Zythar, Elias's thoughts often turned to Earth and the life he had left behind. His role as a leader on Zythar was solidifying, but he remained a human far from home. With the new government stable, Elias approached the council with a proposal to establish diplomatic relations with Earth, hoping to create a bridge between his old world and his new one. The council agreed, and preparations were made to send a diplomatic envoy to Earth, with Elias at the head. The day of departure arrived, and as Elias stood before the spacecraft that would take him home, he felt a surge of emotions. He was returning not as a man who had been abducted by alien slavers, but as an ambassador of a liberated planet. Mara, now appointed as the head of the new government, stood by his side at the departure bay. "You've changed Zythar more than you know," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "and I believe you will continue to do great things." Elias smiled, his eyes reflecting not just the stars in the sky, but the possibilities they held. "We've all changed Zythar, Mara, and together we'll keep changing it for the better." With a final wave, he boarded the ship, looking back one last time at the world that had become his second home. As the ship ascended into the sky, Elias felt a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. He was going back to Earth to tell them a story of a human who fought against impossible odds in a distant world, to bring about change and hope. The journey back to Earth was a time for reflection for Elias, thinking about the future and the continued efforts required to ensure peace and prosperity on Zythar. But it was also a time to prepare, to share his experiences, and to bring two worlds together in mutual respect and cooperation. As Zythar faded into the distance, Elias knew that his adventure was far from over. It was just beginning. The story of humanity, resilient and bold, would continue to unfold across the stars, a testament to their enduring spirit and the cry of humanity, "Fuck yeah," that echoed in his heart.